Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bull Take Podcast. I'm Austin Wader. That's Austin Hill. You already know what time it is. We've done the college football episode already. If you haven't seen it, depending on when you watch it or listen to it, the semifinals might have already happened for the college football playoff. Go tune in for that. We also had some breaking news come in during the show, Carson Beck news. You'll want to tune in to see what that is. But we talk all things college football in it. You don't want to miss that. Go give that episode a watch or listen, available on YouTube or Spotify after you get done watching this. But you already know what it is. It's an NFL episode. It's playoff time, Austin. It is playoff
Yep.
time. Obviously, no Bears in it. The Steelers, I guess, are going to play in it. I don't really know if they'll show up, but nonetheless, playoff football in the NFL is here.
But yeah, I'm excited. Look, it's been a grueling season if you're me. But now it's time to see some fun and interesting matchups with some teams we expected to be here and some teams that kind of took us by surprise.
Yeah, to say the least. But we're going to talk about some of the key games in week 18 first. Just talk about that before we get into the playoff picture. And really, the way things worked out for it, there's no point in mentioning AFC North went to the Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about Tampa Bay Buccaneers clinching the NFC South in a game that me and you, if I do say ourselves, read like a book. It played out exactly like we thought it would, but in the end, Tampa came out on top 27-19 to clinch the NFC South, and they got the home playoff game. And more importantly, with the Rams losing and benching their starters, they have moved up to the 3 seed now. So there's that for Tampa Bay as well. But I mean, this game played out, I think, exactly like we thought it would play out.
Yeah, and the funniest part of the whole thing is it never mattered at all because the Falcons went on to lose against the Panthers anyway. So that kind of put me wrong because I thought that this would be the game to decide. I thought the Falcons would win their game and this game would matter, but it ended up not mattering whatsoever. But yeah, exactly like we thought. Saints get out to an early lead at the first half, and then in the second half, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would wake up and clinch this division. Um, Good to see Mike Evans get that 1,000 yards again. Some people are complaining about it. Boo hoo. Uh,
It's history. You
yeah,
understand? That's history right there.
yeah, it's 1,000 yards. And I think what's more impressive is he missed 3.5 games this year and he still got 1,000 yards.
Agreed. I mean, it absolutely is. And you know what? Now tied Jerry Rice for that record. I mean, that's just let's just say it like it is. If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer when he's done playing his football career, something is seriously wrong. I know I don't care what anyone says. He's got Super Bowl rings. If you question that, he's been the most consistent receiver, arguably since Jerry Rice. So I'm not saying he's the greatest wide receiver ever, but he's the most consistent we've seen with it. But that was the main one. Then we'll just really quickly touch on it. All the drama about would Cincinnati get in? Would Miami get in? It turns out none of it all mattered because Denver humiliated the Chiefs backups 38 to nothing. And how about the Broncos? First time since 2015 when they won Super Bowl 50 are in the playoffs, Austin.
Yeah, and since Super Bowl 50, they've been searching for a franchise quarterback, and it feels like maybe they've got that guy. At least right now, Bo Nix has played up to par with being the face of this franchise.
He has played tremendous. But let's just say it like it is. These games were great and all. Let's talk about the game that we all watched, that we all tuned in for. Vikings and Lions on Sunday night. Lions destroy the Vikings 31-9. Jahmyr Gibbs was incredible with 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. Um, and Sam Darnold, listen, the Sam Darnold, has he played great as a whole this year? Yes. But the question in this game was, could he handle it against the elite teams in the NFC and come ready to play? And again, I'm not trying to critique or be mean to Sam Darnold for what he's done this year. It's been great, but it's safe to say we got the answer in this game, Austin.
Yeah, in this game, he did not meet the standard, and they're going to need much better performances out of him in the postseason if they want to make any kind of run this year.
They really do. And to me, again, it seems like the formula is simple. You collapse that pocket, you bring pressure, then it's going to cause him some issues. And how about Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for Detroit, with the scheming he had, all the injuries Detroit had coming up to this game, um, and he had them ready to shut down this Vikings offense. He very well or might have earned himself a head coaching job with the performance in this game to get them the number one seed alongside Ben Johnson.
Yeah, no way Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn come back again, right? There's no way, right?
The only way I would even consider it is if Detroit doesn't make the Super Bowl. If Detroit doesn't make the Super Bowl, I could see a world where they could come back and be like, look, we're finishing the freaking job here, and we're not stopping until we finish the job. So that's my takeaway from it, I would say. But those are the main things from week 18. Let's talk about the thing we also talked about last week. Black Monday arrived. And it's safe to say, not as big of changes as we were expecting at all. We'll talk about the changes that did happen. One of the bigger ones, the Patriots moving on from Gerard Mayo after winning the final game of the season, causing them to lose out on the number one pick. Tennessee Titans will have the number one pick in the NFL draft. We'll talk about the Titans in a second. But Gerard Mayo, done after one season in New England, even after being selected as the hand-picked man to lead the team after Bill Belichick's departure. And there are mixed feelings all around with people about him being fired after just 1 year. Your thoughts on it, because there are mixed feelings on both sides about the Gerard Mayo 1 year era in New England.
It kind of feels like who was the guy the Texans hired a couple of years ago for 1 year? Raven,
Um,
defensive
David
coordinator.
Cohen, I think, something
David
like that.
Cohen. Yep, yep. Uh, it gives me those almost those exact same vibes. Hire a guy for a year just to have him for a year because you want a better job. You want another guy for a job coming up down the line. Look, did Gerard Mayo have a great year? No, but this team wasn't built to have a great year. Um, I understand, and look, I don't think they can turn up this opportunity. I hope and pray that this was the move made so they could bring Mike Vrabel in.
Yeah.
That's the right move to make here, and he's the right guy for the job, I think. But it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The whole situation. Why not do another year of Belichick then? It just, I don't know. It's just not. It doesn't make any sense to me. Or why not hire Vrabel last year? It just that's my only thing about it is like, do I think Gerard Mayo is the best guy for the job? No. But there's nothing here that happened that told you anything you didn't know last year. This team was bad. So the team's performance has nothing to do with it. This team was bad last year and it was bad this year and it was made to be bad. So that's not his fault. He didn't do all that. He did the best with what he had. That's my biggest gripe is that they put him out there knowing, I guess, from the beginning of the season that he was not going to coach again next year.
I guess so. I mean, like I said, do I blame the Patriots for, him if it's going off the record, then yeah, but like I said, this wasn't a team any of us expected to be a playoff contender. None of it. I mean, we were talking about just setting Drake May up for the future. That was the only thing I think me and you talked about the
Yeah.
Patriots as a whole this year. And that's what I thought it was. And I think the main thing I've heard from some Patriots fans is that, the team over just the last few weeks to end the season, it felt like they had just given up and they weren't even trying at that point. And then you have what happened in week 18 against the Bills backups after that. So, um, there's the argument there, but like you said, if you were going to be done with him after 1 year, why didn't you keep Belichick around? Why didn't you hire Vrabel last year? There's a lot of questions about it. I mean, it's like it was with David Coley. I said that about him, and that was a good job of you on bringing that up because that didn't even cross my mind. Um, I just think he got dealt bad hand. I
Hmm.
mean, he basically got told, "Hey, here's this terrible roster that's not even close to competing. Win games with it." And then when he couldn't, it's like, well, he sucked as a coach. It's like, no, you gave him literally the worst scenario you could give a coach. And that's ultimately what happened and ultimately why he no longer is going to have a job. But let's just say someone's going to give him a chance as a linebacker coach. If you know Gerard Mayo, he played and was a solid linebacker, and he's going to get an opportunity as a coach somewhere else. I hope he gets another head coaching opportunity at some point. But yeah, this was to me, I'm with you. It just felt kind of dirty. It kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But if it's not for Mike Vrabel, then I don't know what it's for.
Yeah, especially another thing. He's a franchise legend as a player, too. It just feels like you treat your own a little bit better than that.
Exactly. But now, obviously, like I said, the Titans get the number one pick after the Patriots won and they lost to the Texans. That doesn't mean no changes in Tennessee were made. Brian Callahan's going to stick around as the head coach, but their GM, Ron Carthon, was fired after 2 seasons despite a big spending spree. And with the Titans, this is a whole mess to me because if you remember, the reason Mike Vrabel got fired was a power dispute between him and the GM and the ownership. And then after 1 year of no Vrabel, you say, "Oh, okay, well, we made a mistake. You're out of here." Again, this is just a whole mess because if you were having a power struggle between the two, and then you fire both guys within really over the same year, what's the point of it? I didn't get in. It just goes to show the kind of thing that's been going on in Tennessee over the last year. Just again, just another terrible situation.
Really, that's over the last like 2 or 3 years since the AJ Brown trade.
Yeah.
That's the type of garbage that's been going on in Tennessee. Relinquish the rights to the Oilers, let
Mm-hmm.
Houston have it, and figure out how to run your own franchise. They're so worried about what everybody else is doing. They can't, I mean, you can't even put a good product out on the field. It's disappointing. It's upsetting. It's frustrating. Because I think everybody in the world knows that Mike Vrabel is the better head coaching option than what they've got right now. And sure, maybe you trust the process. Hey, maybe the GM is right. Maybe this is where we need to go, and maybe we need a new head coach if they can't get along. But then to fire the GM, it leaves me speechless. They're, I mean, it's serious. They're sitting here arguing with college programs about the colors they can use in their jerseys, and you don't play in Houston. You're not the Oilers. You don't use the colors anymore. Give it up.
Yeah.
That's too much of a distraction, apparently, to run a franchise. I mean, I can't believe that. This is just a sorry, sorry football franchise.
Yeah, couldn't say more, and that's why they're going to have the number one pick in the NFL draft this year. Which, of course, that will be a question as we get into the offseason that we'll discuss more about what they will do with that pick. Um, but as far as other moves, let's talk about moves that weren't made. Dolphins keeping everything in place after the 9-8 season. No GM change, no head coaching change there. Really kind of a shocker. I kind of thought with going 8 and 9 that there would be a certain change here, even though with all the injuries that occurred and everything. But they decided to run it back for 1 more year, and I don't know how to feel about that if I'm a Dolphins fan because nothing against Mike McDaniel, but the numbers don't lie. When they have played good teams, that team has not come ready to play. I don't know how else to put it. It's nothing against Mike McDaniel as a person, but they have not come ready to play. So why not make changes?
Yeah, my big thing is I think it depends on what the outlook of next season looks like. I like Mike McDaniel as a head coach, and so I'm happy to see that he'll still be employed next year. But I do think that that means the seat's going to be blazing hot next year. Um, any hiccups might be your job. But my thing is, it depends on where they go. Obviously, I'm sure they were hoping to run it back with the same unit. Um, but we've had Tyreek Hill say, I'm not going to be here next year. Jalen Ramsey's come out and say, I don't want to be here next year. And if that's the case, if these guys are out and you're going to grant those requests to be traded, then you got to start over. This is the time to start tearing it down and start starting over. Tua is in an extension that you're not really probably thrilled about, if especially if Tyreek Hill is going to be gone. Um, it might be time to start over. But I think if they are going to be able to convince these guys or force these guys to come out on the field and play, then I think it's worth keeping Mike McDaniel and giving the old crew one last crack. But if they're gonna tear this thing down this offseason, it makes more sense to me to just get a fresh start for everybody involved.
Absolutely. But let's talk about one that did happen. Jacksonville happened like we all predicted. Doug Peterson was let go. That's the one we all expected. What I did not expect was for the GM, Trent Baalke, who we all know and hate for what he has done in San Francisco and then in Jacksonville, is somehow getting another chance next year to be the GM. And here's something for you folks wondering what happened. He was the GM. He got hired when Urban Meyer got hired. He's been there for a while, and it has clearly not gotten any better. Let's keep in mind this is the guy that didn't pick Aiden Hutchinson number one overall. Don't get me wrong, Trayvon Walker's been pretty solid, double-digit sack seasons back to back to start his career. But the different level of Aiden Hutchinson is, I mean, it's not even close to it. So I am just shocked myself that this move was made. It really blows my mind that he is still going to be sticking around as a GM in Jacksonville. And really, I've heard reports that that's going to cost them a chance with some coaches that aren't going to want to come work with him or start with a GM who has that much power in the organization.
So did you see the owner's interview?
I did not. What was
So
this?
he did like a press with the media, an interview about their decisions and what they're doing with head coach. And yeah, like you said, a lot of head coaches, unanimous head coaches or anonymous, not unanimous, sorry, bad grammar. A lot of anonymous coaches who are apparently up for this job or could potentially be up for this job have said that if Trent Baalke's there, they're not coming. So in response, he has this this press meeting with Trent Baalke there, and he's like, "Yeah, well, I guess if a head coach can convince me why we should fire the GM, we'll do it. If one of the head coaching candidates can convince us to do it, we'll do it. If they can bring good enough evidence." It's like maybe don't say that with the guy right there. So even further dysfunction uh, is that not only have they kept him, but maybe they won't if somebody can bring a compelling argument. But to me, if I'm a head coach, if I have to argue why I think I'm right, then why would I not just go somewhere else where I have, a better job, where I think I've got a better job?
Oh, my
Yeah.
head hurts from what you just told me. My head hurts.
Yeah, absolute
Uh,
nonsense going on in Jacksonville. Not quite Tennessee, but it's getting there.
I mean, don't even get me started on. We'll talk about another team in a second from the AFC South. Don't even get me started on them, um, which we will bring up now. But that's just, oh my gosh. Okay. Indianapolis Colts. Yes, let's move on from whatever Shad Khan and that idiots down in Jacksonville are doing. The Colts. Again, another disappointing finish to a season. We talked about it last week, what the future is going to be for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. They are both sticking around, and Colts fans are flat out not happy. They are not happy with this choice, mainly for Chris Ballard sticking around. And that's something. And look, I think Chris Ballard gets a bad rap because he had to come in. His first year was the year of the Andrew Luck saga where he retired in the preseason. So he got dealt a bad hand from the get go.
Yeah.
But there's still questions about this roster that have not improved since then. And listen, like I said with Shane Steichen, I said about him last week. I don't think he should have gotten fired. I'm glad he didn't get fired. But there has to be some serious changes in this organization. And, some might say at the very, very, very top, looking at you, Jim Irsay, needs to be made there. But something's got to change in this organization because this has just been the thing for the last 5, 6 years.
Yeah, something's got to give. And you're right. I think to me, you're right. Chris Ballard does get a bad rap, but I think there's still problems, and I think it's time for a reset at GM. Shane Steichen, I'm glad they kept him around, but he's got to come in and fix this locker room. It just deteriorated at the end of the year, and he did not step up and be a leader and be a head coach and get that under control or carry himself in the best way. He was just almost like in the media. He was just like, whatever, not my problem. It's like that's the definition of your problem. That's your job. So he's got to have a little bit more fire and a little bit more leadership if he's going to crack it as a head coach in the NFL. Um, but they're just like all these other teams we've been talking about. It's time for some change, and the lack of that shows the lack of care from the very, very top.
All I gotta say is, if the Houston Texans don't win this division for the next 3 straight years, that's an embarrassment to that franchise. Because
Absolutely.
you are probably the most competent, even though your team's really struggled this year and it's a disappointing year for your standards you had coming in. You have these three clown shows. You
Yeah.
don't got to worry about them, really. You don't have to worry about them. There is one more firing that we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about two more things in the NFC before we get to that last fire. Number one, the Giants. Man, oh man, Austin. Was a rough year to be a Giants fan. And now Brian Dayball, Josh Owen, both are going to be sticking around for another year, even though the owner came out afterwards and said they better turn this around quickly because I'm getting tired of no results. Basically coming out and saying they better do good or I'm going to fire them. What was this year not good? That, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Brian Dayball gets a bad rap again. I think he does because I think he's a good coach and got put in a really bad situation. But um, I just I'm surprised that those two guys are still going to be in the building. That's just as a whole, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I thought Dable would just get fired just because they needed somebody to pin this whole thing on. And it seems like the New York fan base wants to pin it on Brian Dable, but I don't know. He didn't choose to pay Daniel Jones $1 billion and Saquon Barkley nothing. Um, so I don't know. I think that there's a lot of problems in New York. I think a good start is going out and getting a quarterback in this draft and trying to do something else with this team. Get somebody that Brian Dable can turn into Josh Allen.
Well, we'll see if he can pull that off, but that's going to be tough. And then the last one, this is nothing official has happened yet, but something to keep an eye on with the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, obviously featuring your Bears. They had asked for an interview request with McCarthy. And then last night, the Bears denied him that request. Overall, they denied the request to let him interview. But still, no contract extension for Mike McCarthy. I believe they have until the 14th. I think it's next Wednesday or next week whenever his contract expires officially. And Jerry Jones has still not made a decision on what the future is going to be with him. So, look, we've stated our opinions on it, but here's my question: why do you think Jerry didn't make a move immediately, though? That's my question, because we both have felt really that he didn't deserve the job in the first place. My question is, why hasn't Jerry Jones made a move yet?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I've been wondering since Mike McCarthy's been the head coach why they haven't made a move and changed something up. But I think it comes down to this illusion that Jerry Jones lives in that the Cowboys are, just a couple bounces of the ball away from winning the Super Bowl. I think he thinks that, it's the luck factor. It's not the team, it's not the coaches. It's just, oh, this year wasn't our year. We put the same product back on the field. One, it keeps selling the tickets. And two, we're almost there. I think he thinks that this is the team that can get it done. This is the coaching staff that can get it done. He's just like the epitome of consistency. He's like, if we just stay consistent, we'll get there eventually. Clearly that's not the answer. Clearly that's not working. But to me, I don't know, it says a lot about what they're trying to do with Mike McCarthy. Now, why something hasn't come through yet, I don't know. But it says a lot to me that the Bears ask for an interview with Mike McCarthy and they say no. That tells me you're at least interested in bringing him back. But yeah, it baffles me that uh, they're so committed to putting the same exact thing on the field every year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We'll see what they do again. They have until I believe January 14th. They might make a move before that. I don't know. Uh, one last thing, then we're going to get to the last coach. I want to get your opinion. So, obviously, Bears are going through the interview process. They've interviewed several coaches. You stated your opinion on who you wanted. My question here is the report coming out about Matt Campbell from Iowa State interviewing for the Chicago Bear job. This is one I solely because, the college to NFL route has either been really good or really bad for coaches. So, just your thoughts on it, because we both agree Matt Campbell is a phenomenal college coach. What he's done at Iowa State's incredible. About maybe a future with the Chicago Bears. What are you thinking there?
I like Matt Campbell. He's a fun guy to watch, to be around. I think that'd be super duper cool. I'm kind of excited by the Bears' interest in pulling somebody from the college game. I think that could bring some youth and some excitement into our coaching staff. Um, and yeah, I think what could really help this team is a coach from the college game who kind of sees the game in from the college viewpoint. I think that would help Caleb Williams a lot. Think an offensive minded coach that has more of this college football style, I think could help Caleb Williams a lot. That's why also the Bears' interest in Dan Lanning, I really, really like. So I would be excited to see one of these young, talented head coaches from college football come up. Like you said, the transition isn't always great. It is an adjustment. It's usually boom or bust. There's usually no median. But to me, I think that that's the right kind of like youth and jolt and excitement that the Bears coaching searches could use. Instead of settling for these, you know, assistants who know somebody who knows somebody who's connected to the Bears organization, let's go out and get somebody that's exciting and will bring a different kind of energy and a different kind of culture to the system.
Absolutely. And then the last coaching change we'll talk about actually and features a whole change as a whole to the organization with the Vegas Raiders. This happened literally just the other day with this news. Antonio Pierce, after this Black Monday, he was still around, so people felt he was going to be back. Then the Raiders ultimately decided to fire him. And then literally just an hour ago, they fired Tom Telesco, the GM. So head coach and GM both one and done really after just one season there. So with the Raiders, look, we both vouched for Antonio Pierce to get the job last year, and he did. But similar to Gerard Mayo, did the team struggle? Yes. But did I think he got put in a really bad position? Yes. And I wonder how that locker room is going to react to that news and what that means for the future as a whole, because they're basically starting all over, which I think is the right call for it.
Yeah, to me, this goes. We talked about this last week. This was a guy that one of us brought up as maybe potential to be fired coming up. Um, and I said that it would be locker room suicide, and I stand by that. I think it is. But with the firing of the GM, that tells me that they want to tear this locker room apart. They're not worried about what happens in the locker room because these guys won't be here next year. And if that's the case, if they really want to tear this down and try and, build up their assets, I think that's the right call. Clearly, the approach they've had over the last couple of years is not working. And so I think now is the time, with, obviously a little bit of new ownership coming in and a new mind in Tom Brady to try and help this organization. Maybe it is the right time to try and build something else, and a little bit of the Patriot Way image.
I think so. We'll see who they go with and what the hiring process could be. Obviously, there's going to be rumors about Bill Belichick. He has already said he's not interested. He's busy out recruiting for North Carolina. But that's the firings as of now. Who knows what could happen in, the next couple of weeks, because coaches can't actually start getting interviewed for these jobs until the divisional round. So, who knows what other changes could be made. There still are a couple of teams maybe to keep an eye on for late changes. We will see. But Austin, we talked week 18. We talked the coaching changes. Let's talk what's going to be going on this weekend, which is, even though they've taken the Super out of the title, I don't know why. Um, It's Super Wild Card Weekend, 3 days of NFL football in the playoffs. Let's break down these games. Let's start with the first one on Saturday in Austin. It's the first one on Saturday every single time they're in the playoffs. The Houston Texans home playoff game hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, obviously, the Texans have not lived up to the expectation we had for them in the preseason. The Chargers, Jim Harbaugh getting them to the playoffs in just year one, I think is incredible as itself. Um, this is an interesting matchup to say the least. Tell me a little bit what your thoughts are on the matchup and which way you be leaning.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun, exciting matchup. I think this could be two really explosive, fun young quarterbacks that kind of have a fun duel. But the thing I think is going to be the key is the trenches, especially Texans offensive line versus this Chargers defensive line. And to me, I think that's where I get a little bit concerned if I'm the Houston Texans. We've talked about it all year, that the Texans offensive line is their biggest weak point. And they have not done a lot to take care of that. To me, I see this being kind of a slaughter with Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa kind of hunting the quarterback. I think that inclines me to lead in the way of the Chargers, just because CJ Stroud has had some issues taking care of the ball this year because of that offensive line. And I think their struggles are going to continue against the Chargers.
You said it a lot nicer than I'm going to say. This is a flat out mismatch. I don't even see this really being much of a game. I expect LA. It will be a low scoring game, which will probably give the Texans a chance. But this is a mismatch, like you said, offensive line versus defensive line. It's not the same. Plus, Jim Harbaugh knows how to win in the postseason. Yeah, this was probably the second easiest pick for me of the playoffs, which I'll talk about my number one when we get to it. But yeah, Chargers easily there. And then on Saturday night, the first ever NFL playoff game on Amazon. You get an old school AFC North matchup with the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's just say it like it is. Steelers are, I would say, limping. No, no, no. They're crawling into the playoffs. They are crawling into the playoffs, four straight losses. The offense is not looking good. I'm not going to go on a full rant because we'll be here another 30 minutes. The Baltimore Ravens, on the other hand, look, you signed Derrick Henry in the incredible year he's had. You took advantage of the Steelers flopping at the end of the year to steal the division. Now you got a home playoff game against them. And the thing we talked about when the signing of Derrick Henry happened last year, Austin, as you remember, we said you signed Derrick Henry to win you playoff games. And it's going to be a snowy, most likely a snowy night in Baltimore. These are the kind of games where you would sign Derrick Henry to play for. Thoughts on it again? Which way you're leaning?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be kind of a gritty, physical game, especially if it does snow. Going to be a lot harder to throw that football. Going to be a lot harder to see what's going on. Um, but I think the Steelers are going to maybe try and lean into that. Look, it's AFC North. These two teams love to get dirty and physical against each other. But I think they're going to lean into that. Obviously, a lot of struggles with Russell Wilson as of late throwing the football. So they might try to incorporate a little bit more of a run game. But also, there's not really time to make a change at quarterback because Justin Fields has been struggling with that injury. And so you may not have him 100% to be able to check in at quarterback and make some throws. So I'd expect these two teams to run the ball a lot, get physical, get tough. And at that point, it's two great defenses, two solid run games. It's really anybody's game at this point. I think I'll lean the Ravens just because this game's in Baltimore, but because of how these two teams play each other and because of the style of game that's going to be played, legitimately one mistake could lose either of these teams this game.
This is giving me 13-10 vibes. That's going to be the final
Exactly.
score. 13 to
Exactly.
10 vibes is
Exactly.
how it's going to play out in this game. And that's how the Steelers are going to have to play to win the game. Like I said, I voiced my opinions on the offense. The Steelers, like I always say, they play down the competition. But the thing that's annoying about them is they play up to levels against some teams. They haven't the end of the season. So obviously that could lead to this being a complete blowout. Obviously, I'm completely biased and will pick the Steelers in this game, but there's no way I am not worried about Derrick Henry running all over the Steelers defense. and the Ravens defensive line just having a field day against Russell Wilson, especially if it does turn into a snow game. But yeah, this will be a low scoring, probably a really close AFC North matchup. I mean, that's how it is in the AFC North.
Yeah.
And then now through to the Sunday slate. First of three games on Sunday, the Buffalo Bills hosting the Denver Broncos in this one. Obviously, Denver first playoff trip since 2015. The Bills, Austin, if I had a drink for every single time that we said if the Bills don't win it this year, they might be screwed. I think we've reached that point again
Yeah.
now because the year Josh Allen has had, the defense is getting healthier as the season goes along, really, with some guys coming back. The offense is clicking with having so many different weapons. I mean, this has to be the year for. I'll just go ahead and say that. I mean, I'm picking Buffalo in this game. There's no doubt. I think Denver's defense could make it interesting, but it'll be hard to stop Josh Allen consistently in this game. I think, and I don't think it'll go well for Denver. Which way are you leaning this one?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you. I'm leaning towards Buffalo. We could probably have a huge super cut, 30 minutes long, of every time we've said the Bills are gonna win the Super Bowl this year, over our tenure doing the Bold Take podcast together. You're right. We've just said it that many times. I'd love to know how many times we've said it throughout the history. I'm certainly not gonna go back and count it though, and I don't expect you to either. That's way too much work, way too many hours of Bold Take Podcast
Oh
Media.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, this team is playing so well, so good. Super exciting to kind of see the Bills going into the playoffs this hot. Um, I just look, the Broncos have had a good year. This is a good step for Bo Nix. But at the end of the day, I think being a rookie is going to catch up to you one way or another. It always seems to. I think the inexperience is going to hurt him a little bit, and I think this Bills offense is just going to soar in this game.
absolutely. And then the next matchup, we're finally heading over to the NFC playoffs. This one in Philly at 3:30 on Sunday. Eagles taking on the Packers. Obviously a rematch from week one. Probably the best 2 versus 7 matchup building wise that we've had since moving up to 7 teams. But questions, Austin, for both sides. Number one, Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. He most likely will play, I'm sure, but still in concussion protocol, has to worry some. And Jordan Love, with that elbow injury he suffered in week 18 against the Bears. I mean, both quarterbacks are not 100% coming into the game, which to me, Austin, equals we're going to see an old school grudge match of Josh Jacobs versus Saquon Barkley, which if it is, count me in for that. Which way are you going with this one?
Look, this is going to be a great bowl game, but if this comes down to running backs, I'm sorry. There's no question, no doubts about it. This is going to be a Philadelphia Eagles win. Saquon Barkley has just had the most insane running back season we've seen in a long time. He has carried the load for the Eagles. And if they call on him to do that and the Packers try to match that, I just don't think they can, especially coming off that leaves a bad taste in your mouth loss to your rival Chicago Bears that you haven't dropped a game in the last 10 matchups against the Chicago Bears, and you drop one on a walk-off field goal. I know the game didn't matter that much. I'm sure they weren't playing at 100%. Um, but I think a lot of that just combines to put the Eagles on top. I think the best case scenario for the Packers in this one is Hurts isn't able to make it back for this one, and Love is. I think that gives you your best chance to be dynamic and really win this game. But I like Saquon Barkley to be able to put this team on his back no matter the circumstances and get the job done.
Yeah. Listen, if I think Green Bay, obviously, I was on another show and it sets up perfectly. Green Bay, the 7 seed, heading to the NFC East champion on a weekend where it's supposedly going to get a lot of snow in Arkansas. I mean, it's literally the exact same formula as for what happened last year. So, um, however, though, that team last year they played did not have Saquon Barkley on it, a 2,000-yard rusher. I'm with you. I think Green Bay has a chance if Jordan Love can be 100%. But if Jalen Hurts is playing out there too, and he's able to make plays along with Saquon Barkley running the football, it's going to be really hard to convince me that Green Bay wins this game. I think it could be fun if they did, but I just don't see it. And then on Sunday Night Football, a fun one going down in Tampa Bay, probably the most intriguing matchup of the first round to many people. Washington Commanders heading on the road to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Jane Daniels, Baker Mayfield going at it. Surprisingly strong year for the Commanders. Tampa Bay taking advantage of it. Like something we've said a million times was if Atlanta wanted to win this division, they could, but they just
Mhm.
never wanted to. So Tampa taking advantage of that again to host a home playoff game here. To me, this equals a fun matchup. Two really good offenses going at it, but you have two defensive minded coaches on that side and two defenses that at times have really not been that good this year. So, where are you leaning with this one?
I think it's going to be fun, explosive offense. I really like this matchup. To me, the big thing is, like you said, the defenses, defensive minded coaches. These defenses hasn't always showed up. But just based on the assembly of the team, if I had to lean on one of these defenses to win me the game, I'm going to go with the Commanders. I think Commanders are going to win this game. I hate picking against the Buccaneers. I'd really like to see them make another run in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I just think the Commanders can make more things happen, and I think the defense is a little bit more reliable.
Yeah, that I was thought I was going to be the only one going with Washington this kind of thing here, but no, I'm rolling. I'm rolling with Washington too. I also think that I don't trust that Tampa Bay secondary. I've seen it at times be an issue this year. So yeah, I'll roll with Washington as well. Uh, Pretty much, and also I just think they're the better team as a whole. I think they're the better team. I'm like you said, I would like to see Tampa win. I have nothing against Tampa if they do win and go on a run like they did last year, but yeah, I'll pick Washington along with you. And then the last one on Wild Card Weekend, Monday Night Football. We got the Vikings heading to LA to take on the Rams. Now, obviously, the wildfire situation going down in LA could affect this. Of course, thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in LA suffering through that. They could move this game to Phoenix and move it to the Cardinals Stadium if they have to. So that's something obviously to monitor as it gets closer to time. But the Vikings, obviously, 14-3, arguably the best 5 seed maybe ever in a conference. But they're coming off a really bad loss to Detroit, and the Rams are red hot. The Rams have been red hot to end the season. They've been good. And if you look at the Vikings schedule, Austin, before that Detroit loss, who was their last loss to? That'd be to the Rams on Thursday Night Football. So, what do you see in this matchup on Monday Night Football?
I think it's kind of something we talked about in the Lions Vikings game. I think pressure, if you can get to Sam Darnold, you can disrupt him and you can really start to throw off this offense. I like the defense that the Rams have. I expect them to get some pressure and make this game tough for Sam Darnold. I think it'll be close, but I think the Rams are going to get the job done and really stun what's been a phenomenal season from Sam Darnold and the Vikings, and maybe put the rest of the NFC on notice.
I talked about games where that was my second easiest pick. This was my easiest pick to take the Rams in this game because the blueprint's there for the Rams defensively. Just blitz the crap out of Sam Darnold, get after him, and you will be fine. You have enough weapons offensively. You took the week off, and yeah, I feel quite confident that the Rams are going to win this game. It is the easiest pick to me, which I know is a surprise maybe to some people, but to me, this is the easiest pick of the entire wild card round is to pick the Rams to win this game. But Austin, before we make the Super Bowl picks, it's a tradition. We do it. We're different. Give me your conference championship predictions for the AFC and the NFC. Let's see if we can hit these round the money.
Ugh. All right. They tried to keep me from my old ways, but they couldn't do it for long. I'm going to say Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC Championship. And then I don't exactly have the bracket sitting right in front of me, so I'm going to try and freestyle this NFC. Um, but
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
I'm going to say let's go the Lions and the Commanders. Is that
I,
possible?
I think with the Commanders being the 6th seed, they would have to go to Detroit in the divisional round.
Ugh.
Unfortunately, if you have the 2 seed and then the 4 and the 5 winner would be playing the two
Yeah.
seed in that. So yeah, they would unfortunately meet in the divisional round. So
And maybe the Rams.
Yeah, that one's possible. That one's possible.
Okay. Well, yeah, then I'm going to say that. I'm going to say the Lions and the Rams. Nothing against the Eagles. I just want to say the Eagles because I want to have a little bit of fun.
That I mean, you took the words right out of my right out of my mouth. Chiefs, Bills, simple as that. I really, to me, the NFC playoff has more chaos potential than the AFC, just because I really don't think there are teams in the AFC. It'll be the Chiefs versus the winner of Ravens and Bills. Let's just say it like it is. That's what it will be. Um, NFC, exact same as you, and it was confidence for me. I got Lions versus Rams in this one. Um,
Okay.
I think I felt really confident in this one. I think the Rams, even though they were dominated by Saquon Barkley early in the season, if they do have to go play him again, I think I have confidence in that Rams offense and the ability of them in the postseason to keep up with the Eagles, and that defense will have a better game plan, knowing having already played Saquon in this Eagles offense already. So yeah, so obviously that leaves us with the same final four. So what you got for your Super Bowl prediction? I'll just go and get mine out of the way. It's the same as last year: Lions versus Bills. One team is getting their first Super Bowl trophy this year. You hope.
Yeah. I'm going to go Lions versus not Lions. Yes. Okay. Yes. Lions versus Bills also. Um, I was
I mean,
confusing
it's the
myself there.
perfect one. You got it's two elite teams in the NFL, and neither has won a Super Bowl. It's the perfect matchup that we could get. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that.
Yeah, they tried to keep me from it. They tried to stop me. They tried to pollute my mind with this Texans propaganda. But I'm right back to where I was probably 4 years ago, putting the Bills in the Super Bowl.
Yep. Hey, I mean, it could happen. We'll see how it plays out there. But that's our picks for all that and the Super Bowl. But now you got to get your bets of the week, Austin. What is your bet of the week for wild card weekend here? A lot of good options.
Keep riding my Buffalo Bills wave. I'm going to take Bills minus 8.5 against the Broncos. I think they could bring a different edge and set a different tone in this game against the Broncos, especially in front of Bills Mafia.
Okay. Look, not a lot of things have gone my way with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you know what they say, if you're struggling, you got to go back to your roots. Give me Steelers Ravens under 43 and a half. I think it's the perfect pick. I don't think there needs to be any explanation for it. It's going to be old school AFC North football. That equals not a lot of points. I don't see this getting to 43 points. Just pretty much pretty simple as that.
Yeah.
But those are our bets of the week. We've made the wild card predictions. We made our Super Bowl predictions. I think it's safe to say that you will have the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl over the Lions if that does happen.
I think it's safe to say that's going to happen.
Yeah, I unfortunately would agree with you on that, even though I'd love Dan Campbell to win a Super Bowl. I think it would be Buffalo if those two did match up. But those are our picks for NFL Wild Card Weekend here. We want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Bold Take Podcast. Again, if you haven't, go watch the college football episode. We discussed a lot there. We'll be back next week talking the national championship for college football and the divisional round in the NFL playoffs. We'll be talking it all, so make sure and tune in for that next week. But that's going to do it for us here at the Bull Take Podcast. That's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. We want to thank you for watching.